Siltforge is ready for an industrial boom. With the basic needs of Siltforge citizens solved by Canolaville and the greater Siltforge reservoir and water treatment plant, the colony is finally in a place to go from a dingy, as-needed industrial setup to an intentionally developed industry. Rhazin and Kina already have their blueprint set to go, traveling across the river and rebuilding everything from the ground up. Not only will they expand the current material offerings, but they plan to expand production into more complex materials: treated planks, extract, and explosives. To support this expansion, Kina has identified 2 new safe power generation opportunities. Using more efficient water wheels as well as burning excess wood to make up for periods of low flow. With a plan in place, let's get started on upgrading Siltforge's industry. Hello and welcome back to Siltforge. So as we know, today is going to be all about expanding our industry up onto this ridge and moving most of what we have down here up here. So I'm just actually going to jump right into it and start our beavers off on getting rid of everything up on this ridge, because we don't need any of it. Now, right off the bat, while they're busy doing that, we just need to address power. Because if we look, we're using about 3/4 of our available power just with this tiny little area over here. We need a lot more than that. And while I could continue using these compact water wheels, which produce a decent amount of power, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to come down here to power and large water wheels. As we can see, at peak times, these generate about 5 times as much power, right? Should say at peak water flow. They will generate about 5 times as much power as these tiny water wheels do. They are bigger, so they take up about twice the amount of space, but it is still a significant improvement. So while I am going to leave these currently, since we need the production still, I am going to start to expand our water wheel offerings into these large water wheels. Offerings? Who am I offering the water wheels to? So an important thing to note about large water wheels is that that's a power wheel. Large water wheels do sit higher up than regular water wheels do. So we do need to get the block that we build the water wheel on up a height above everything else. And then we could just build, well, we could unlock, but then we can build the water wheel right there. But this does kind of present a challenge for building these water wheels like this, as we will need a second platform right here to continue along with this water wheel chain. So we will need something like that, and then I guess we could... It'll look a bit funky, but we could get even more water wheel power by doing that. Now, for this middle one, I am just going to build them a path to get over to it, because I do not want them walking in the bad water river here. It has been pointed out to me that that is enough bad water to contaminate our beavers, and we can't deal with that yet. Of course, the other thing we will need, just like any power generation building, I do need to connect this up to our power system normally. So we'll need to have some sort of structure here to plug that in. Now, this is clearly not the most efficient or reasonable way to do this, but it's the way I'm going to do it for now. And honestly, if at this point you're not a new viewer and you expect reasonable and efficient, I don't know what to tell you. And as we can see, this one large power wheel is actually going to generate 800 horsepower on its own. So I am guessing once we have all 3 of these in, that will be the only expansion we need this episode to our power. But since we're over here and already speaking about power, let's go ahead and get our power from over here to our new industrial area. So I'm going to start deleting some things from our industry over here. Initially, right off the bat, we don't need these fermenters anymore. We will rebuild them later when we have more beavers and can spare the jobs. But for right now, it's going to be more important for us to hold those jobs and use them for making materials we actually need rather than boosting our beavers' well-being by a point or two. I will end up keeping our oil press and moving it over here, mostly just because I think it's very important early on to store as much canola oil as possible. And I say that because there have been multiple times where I personally have been playing the Iron Teeth and run out of canola late in the game. And it absolutely decimates my beaver population because most of the food sources late game use canola oil and then they all starve to death. And then otherwise, I'm just going to drag my power across this ravine. I personally have no idea if it's going to end up staying here. It does kind of strike me that I'll find a better place for it eventually, but for right now, this is more than good enough to serve our need for getting power over here. Oh, and we have a bad tide. And I wasn't thinking about it. So we'll have to just let all the water out there. Also, this will be an interesting test to see how far this contamination actually spreads down here. I am pretty sure it's going to kill off some of this canola, but I don't know how much more it's going to do. So a few canola, a little bit of our berries here too die. These ones dry out, that's fine. All right, and honestly, that ended up being a lot more involved than I expected it to be. Because my beavers kept getting trapped or not being able to get where they needed to go. But we've got this power line in. So we can finally move all of our industry from down here up to here. So now with our power all the way over here, I'm just going to move everything we've got down here, our lumber mills, our gear workshop, and our smelter. I'm going to take them and I'm going to move them up onto this ridge. So for the planning here, I'm going to be following the Rhazin's comment that they left on the last video. They gave me some actual numbers here, so I'm going to just follow what they said, assuming that they are smarter than I am. So we're going to go with 4 lumber mills, 2 gear workshops, 2 smelters, and then we will connect all of that up now that it's all in. And I will build a tiny little power connection between these. I don't think that will stay, maybe it will, but I don't think that will stay permanently. So as these jobs fill up, I will just come back over here and I will delete our other lumber mills, which is going to cut off our entire power. So they will need that, and they will need to do that quickly. But we will also notice that our beavers that are working here are spending a lot of time walking back to our storage. So we will also get some temporary hauler storage over here since we are so far from anything else. And that will be our typical setup where we're obtaining what we need over here and supplying what we produce. And then we'll depend on, well, we have 10 haulers. We'll depend on these 10 haulers to actually get that to and from these buildings. And we can go ahead and delete the gears and the metal from over here, along with most of the rest of this infrastructure, because we don't need anything but the power line at this point. And as we can see, now everything over here is working and supplied, which means that it's time to shift from just moving our old industry up here to building some new industry. I am going to start with the wood workshop. This is going to be 800 science points, and it's going to be a bunch of stuff that we already are producing. So I'm just going to build one and put it right there. I'm building it there because it is going to be close to where we are building all of these planks anyway. So they will be able to walk right out and get the planks that they need. But they will also need pine resin, which we started collecting last episode. So we will give them an obtain warehouse there. I may build a second one of these, but that will be in this spot where we will need dynamite, which is, of course, going to be the next thing that we build. Right here next to our smelters, I'm going to come down here to Explosives Factory, unlock that. As we can see, it's all materials that we currently have, only 400 science points. I'm going to build us an Explosives Factory. It only needs bad water to manufacture explosives, so I'm going to bring some bad water over here. I'm also going to build another small warehouse for dynamite that it is going to supply. And then the last thing I'm going to want to expand into over here, it's going to be underwater. It is our centrifuge, so that's 600 science points. Again, materials we have more than enough of. I'm going to put it 2 away from this wood workshop, and I'm just going to connect it up with power lines for now, and we will let that all build in. While we let it build in, I will actually build us a little bit of extra storage over here. So this will be not gears, dynamite. We will start storing more gears. We will store treated planks. And we will store extract. And then the last thing I'm going to need to move is going to be this food factory and also our oil press. So I'm just going to 1, and we will of course need some warehouses for unprocessed corn and processed corn rations. I am doing this so that we have everything in the same spot. And a drought has hit, which means that currently we are out of power. Now, I could open up this floodgate and let some power through. Now, that usually is not going to be a very good option. What option we do have for emergency power generation is going to be here under power, and it's going to be the engine. Now, unfortunately, we have no usable gears, so I can get this started, but I can't actually use it to generate power currently. This is going to be 400 science points. I'm just going to take this and I'm going to build it right here. They're not going to be able to build it currently because I have no gears. So it, at the moment, is just not going to be built, and nothing's going to get done for the next 4.7 days. But hey, that's what happens when you don't plan very well. And that is the end of the drought, so honestly, none of it ended up mattering. Here is our power, and it's going to bring our gear workshops back online. And with that, our engine is complete. So what we are going to do, since this is an emergency power generation, we're going to wait for them to fill it up with logs. So we will wait until that gets to, I guess 9 is fine, and then we are going to pause this. So it is no longer going to generate any power. The supply will last for 46.1 hours. But once a drought hits, and only a drought because a bad tide will still flow through here, we can turn this on and it'll generate that 400 horsepower, and it will at least keep the lights on in these buildings. Now, it's not going to be enough to keep them all running at 100% efficiency, because as we can see, the demand is 1700. We would need 5 of these to actually keep this all running at full efficiency, and right now we don't really have the space for 5 of them. But in an instance where we need the power so that these can run during a drought, it will be more than nothing. And with that, our industrialization, or perhaps reindustrialization, of Siltforge is complete. And now there is one final thing I want to do before moving on, So we have in excess of power. And we have these researchers over here. Half of these researchers aren't even working since they're so low in the workplace hierarchy. And it takes up a bunch of space. It takes up jobs. And the Iron Teeth have a way around that. So I'm going to go to science. We are going to get one of these number crunchers here. It is going to be 500 horsepower. It's going to cost us almost all of our current science points, but we will get that back pretty quickly because we are going to be getting 5 times the amount of science that we currently are with 2 of these. It's logs. It's planks, gears, and metal. So I'm going to unlock that. I'm going to put it right here. Going to set it to a high priority. And with that number cruncher built, we no longer have to worry about any of these jobs. We will now just make 10 science points an hour. If this thing actually had power, that is. Turn that on. If this had power, we would be making 10 science points an hour. As it stands, we're going to be making a little over 1 until this bad tide is over. And with the bad tide effectively over, our number crunching away and our industrial ridge built, it's time to get to the second part of the episode. It's the dawn of a new day. The sun is shining. The new industrial park is silent. Rhazin emerges from his barrack to find nothing going on. The power wheels are spinning, but no work is being done. And soon, Sinzel brings the news, and Rhazin finds out why. The citizens of Siltforge have gone on strike. They are threatening to stop all work permanently unless the conditions of Siltforge improve. Sure, they have adequate food and water, but that's literally all they have. No enrichment, no decoration, just a stark shelter and some corn. Rhazin is initially hesitant until Sinzel informs him that unless the conditions improve, they will unfortunately also join the strike. His hand all but forced, Rhazin greenlights a rebuild of the living quarters, along with setting aside some of the Siltforge mainland for entertainment space. So to start off here, I'm pretty much going to get rid of all the buildings in this area. I'm going to first copy and paste my district center and then get rid of that. Reconnect that up. I will put it back over here once I'm finished, but I just want it out of the way for now. Then I am just going to take a large brush and demolish all of these buildings and these. I'm going to relocate semi-permanently our breeding pods over to here. So those will just be there nearby where our berries are. I'm going to get rid of this for now since I don't need it. And then I'm going to relocate that forester over here, mostly because these berries are already planted, so I don't need that forester there for that. Then, with this all cleared out, I'm going to unlock Barracks. Now we have more than enough science points now that we've gotten so many with our number cruncher, so that's just going to be 400 science and 70 logs. I'm going to put 3 along here like that. Then I'm going to relocate my district center here again. Those paying attention would have seen that it moved maybe a block. And this is once again District 1. And then we will mirror this on the opposite side. So we'll go 3 blocks away. And 3 like so. We will also need to build some more medical beds while we relocate everything. And with a bad tide approaching and 2 of our barracks still unbuilt, we will notice that we actually have enough beds for all of our beavers. Now I'm going to real quick give us 2 more barracks here for extra beds going forward. Now, one of the nice things about the Iron Teeth is that you can build out housing like this because our beavers will just be born with these breeding pods. We have nothing to worry about by having more housing than we need, and it will just fill as beavers are born. So despite the fact that we will have more than double the amount of beds we need, we're not going to run into any overpopulation issues. But since we now have the majority of our beds built here, it's time to get started on focusing on well-being. So initially what I'm going to do on both sides is just build us a staircase up and then across. Because what we're going to build up here, which I'm kind of surprised I haven't built any of yet, is going to be our rooftop terraces. So we're going to take these and we're going to build one there and then mirror that on the other side again. We're also going to pause these because I want these to be built last of all the things I'm going to build up here. Because as you will know if you've watched the Timberborn Beginner Survival Guide, one of the things that you can do, since beavers will spend their time in both houses and these terraces, you can put decorations near either of these buildings for your beavers to benefit while they're sleeping or using the terrace. So we're going to do exactly that. I'm going to unlock these beaver busts, and I'm going to put these as sort of gargoyles on the end here. We will get a 1x2 roof for the edge. We will have some shrubs behind. Then since we don't have a 3x1 roof here, we will just use these 1x1 tiles. And then these middle houses will not be getting the full benefit of everything, so we will just once again shrub and once again beaver bust. Now, hopefully, since these rooftop terraces are going to be built last, they will have no trouble building all of that and then the rooftop terraces. Then next I'm going to go down here to Wellbeing, and I'm going to go to this exercise plaza. I'm going to unlock that, and I'm going to build this right here at the edge of our river, since I think that'll look nice. And then I'm going to get us some campfires. And then I'm going to sneak, if the game doesn't freeze forever, sneak 2 more campfires in back here at the very back. We will then eliminate some of these beds that I didn't actually need, but just built because I was freaking out about the amount of injured beavers. We will come down here and we will unlock the double shower. Now this allows 2 beavers to shower side by side, as you do when you are a beaver. And we will build them some double showers right here. And then last but not least, for the purpose of well-being, I will invest in a few of these scratchers. I will also need to, once again, because I eliminated them all earlier, I would like to build storage for water, because it will be better for our beavers if it is close and they don't have to walk all the way over here to get water. And the food is honestly close enough, so that's not necessary. And then to end out the episode, I'm going to unlock lanterns, I'm going to unlock benches, I'm going to unlock braziers. I might unlock these fences, depending on how I feel. And I'm going to unlock beaver statues. And then I'm just going to get to work decorating this area. And that is not good. It does seem like we have come up upon an issue here where a lot of our crops are now dying because of how long this bad tide is. Now, frankly, that is not what one might call an insurmountable issue, but since our living quarters over here is now fully finished for the time being, I think it's one that we should fix, or at least partially fix. So the thing that I'm going to do that I think is going to have the biggest effect on reversing what has happened here, beyond completely changing our entire water storage scheme, I'm going to delete that floodgate, because as I was reminded in the comments of the last video, I actually only need a single sluice to be here to regulate the downstream water height. So we will just get a sluice here. We will make the downstream depth 0.65. So it should keep this depth actually right up at this level where the dam is, rather than for some reason being usually below there. And as we can see, it's currently doing that. So we should have less issues, or fewer issues, where a 5-day bad tide hits and then it turns out this entire area down here has no water in it. And as we expand this out and eventually just are storing more water than we need, we could also just start dumping water in here, but we don't need to do that currently. So with all of that taken care of, I think that is where I am going to end this episode of Siltforge. Up here you can really see how dramatically different the entire colony looks with that barracks change, as well as the industrial ridge. But believe me, there is far more to come with this series. So if you want to continue to see it, then please subscribe. We have a lot more to do just fixing this place up. I mean, the storage right now is... oh boy, that's something. And I'm sure we will get to that at some point in the future. But for now, this is where I'm going to leave you. If you see anything else that you think needs to be improved, or you just don't like the way I did something, feel free to comment it down below. As we can see from this episode, I do read and listen to those and try to implement them as best as I can. I also do have a Discord which has been surprisingly lively lately. We've been talking a lot about, believe it or not, Timberborn. The link to that is in the description, but otherwise, as always, thank you so much for watching. Siltforge presses forward. And with the living quarters upgraded and the workers finally able to get some R&R, the strike situation in Siltforge has abated. Still, Rhazin wonders whether the frustrations of his people have truly been solved, or if they've only delayed a true reckoning. Especially, he thinks, once the beavers get word about his next project.